Picture a longhouse in midwinter. Tar-dark beams, sweating resin. Smoke hanging under the roof like a stubborn low cloud that refuses to leave. The firelight doesn't shine so much as crawl across FAC. Now, here's the thing people don't expect. Someone tells a joke about dying. Not polite laughter. Not nervous giggling. It's the hard, barking laugh of people who live close enough to death to recone. A broad-shouldered farmer lifts his cup and says, dead serious, "If I die tomorrow, I want a proper burial." Heads nod, respectful. Then he adds, "Nail my boots to my feet." The room erupts. He leans in like he's confessing treason. "Because if you bury me barefoot, my brother inherits my boots before the soil settles. If you bury them beside me, he'll say I'd want him to have them." Either way, that's the first little Viking truth. Death is inevitable, but family politics are immortal. Thorstein the Skald sits near the fire. Ink-stained fingers, quick eyes. A man who survives by reading moods the way sailors read waves. His motive is simple, be remembered in verse. His inner conflict is less noble. One wrong line, and I'll be remembered as a stain he wa. Then comes the second mini-story, darker and sharper, like a joke with a blade hidden inside it. An older warrior says, "If I die, bury me face down." Someone asks why. He grins. "So my enemies can kiss my reputation." The hall roars. Thorstein laughs with them, but his stomach tightens, because he knows what the room is really doing, practicing. Practicing how it will speak when grief arrives. Practicing how it will judge courage. Practicing how it will decide who belongs. And tonight, someone is going to tell a joke that lands too close to the truth, and the hall will remember exactly who dared to say it. Hold a still image in your mind. A burial mound opened like a slice of dark cake. Turf, stone, charred timber, then the faint outline of a boat or wagon packed with objects that still look ready to be used. A comb, beads the color of sea glass. A whetstone worn smooth by years. An iron blade that catches the light like it's offended by time. This isn't decoration. It's logistics. The Norse treated death like travel. You don't go empty-handed, and you don't go without witnesses. Their afterlife wasn't one neat hotel with a single reception desk. There was Valhalla, for the chosen dead, where feast and fight never end. There was hell for most, cold, quiet, stubborn. There were drownings claimed by the sea, deaths claimed by sickness, deaths claimed by bad luck, bad timing, and the simple fact that winter is stronger than people. So how do you live with that hovering over you like smoke? You make the darkness small enough to carry. Look at the longhouse again. The light is warm, but it can't reach every corner. That's what fear is like in these stories. Always present, rarely spoken plainly. A dark joke is a way to speak without confessing. It's a grin that says, "Yes, I'm afraid. No, you don't get to see me beg." Sigrid, the Jarl's wife, understands this better than the loud men do. Her motive is unity. Keep the hall from splintering, because splintering means rivals, and rivals mean funerals. But her inner conflict is private. How many dead can a family absorb before it becomes a different family entirely? She watches the jokes, measuring them, listening for who laughs too hard and who refuses to laugh at all. Thorstein watches too, but for a different reason. A Skald knows reputation is a second life. The tongue can build immortality. It can also build enemies. If I make the hall laugh at death, he thinks, what else am I teaching them to laugh at? Outside, wind pushes snow against the wall like handfuls of sand. The hall feels safe, until it doesn't. And in a place like this, the moment safety breaks is never announced. It simply arrives, and suddenly everyone hears the silence behind the laughter. Imagine a painted feast scene. Firelight on silver brooches, steam rising from wet cloaks near the door, the smell of ale and smoked fish mixing into something sharp and alive. The benches are crowded, shoulders touching, laughter bouncing off timber walls like thrown stones. At the high seat sits Jarl Hakon, cloak clasped tight, beard braided like a man bracing for impact. Behind him, a carved post shows a dragon biting its own tail. Endings always return. Hakon has a problem. Last summer's raid went wrong. Fog, bad luck, a shoreline that belonged to someone fiercer than expected. Men died far from home, without proper rites. In a Viking hall, that kind of death sticks to a leader like soot. Whispers begin. The Jarl's luck is failing. And luck isn't superstition here. Luck is political math. A Jarl with luck keeps followers. A Jarl without luck becomes a chair with an invitation. So Hakon turns grief into theater. He raises a horn and calls for a toast to those who won't drink with us tonight. His motive is control. Make the hall agree, as one body, that the dead died well and the living remain loyal. But his inner conflict flickers in his eyes. What if they laugh and still stop trusting me? Thorstein feels the trap forming. Praise too gently, and he sounds afraid. Joke too sharply, and he hints the Jarl is to blame. Across the benches sits Einar, young, tense, thumb rubbing the rim of his cup until it turns white. He wants glory, yes, but more than that. He wants his father's empty seat to mean something. His private fear is ugly. What if my father died because someone important made a mistake? Hakon nods at Thorstein. Not a request, a command. Thorstein rises, feeling attention land on him like a hand on the throat. In this room, a blade can kill a man. A line of verse can kill a reputation for a generation. The smoke shifts. The fire pops. The moment opens like a door, and Thorstein has to step through it. Zoom in on Thorstein's mouth as if the camera is creeping closer. In Viking culture, a mouth could start wars. The hall quiets until you can hear the drip of melted frost from boots drying by the hearth. Thorstein begins with respect, fate, courage, the shortness of life. Then tilts the tone, carefully. The fallen have gone ahead to reserve the best benches, he says. Because in Valhalla the beer is endless, but the good seats are not. A ripple of laughter. Safe laughter. He follows with a line that feels almost modern, like a wink across centuries. And when you arrive, don't ask where the toilets are. Ask where the high tables are. Odin respects priorities. Veterans laugh first, relieved. Younger men laugh a heartbeat later, checking if it's permitted. Hakon smiles without showing teeth. Approval and ownership. Now the first mini-story inside this chapter. Thorstein recalls hearing another skald explain Valhalla like an exclusive club with a terrible doorman. The trick, that skald said, is not dying bravely. Plenty of fools die bravely by accident. The trick is dying memorably, so Odin recognizes your face. Then he raised his cup. And don't arrive acting grateful. Walk in like you belong. Otherwise you'll end up at the children's table with the poets. The hall chuckles, because every man can picture it, and every man is secretly terrified of being ordinary, even in paradise. But watch Einar. His laugh catches. He hates that it feels good to laugh. It makes him feel disloyal to grief, as if humor betrays the dead. His motive, become worthy, be seen, wrestles with his inner conflict. If I laugh, am I admitting my father's death was just normal? Then the second mini-story, nastier, a reminder humor is also a weapon. A man mutters, if I die, tell hell I'm late because I couldn't find my pants. Someone snorts. Another answers, hell will understand. She's heard that excuse from half your lovers. Roars. But notice how the laughter chooses a target. Jokes in this hall aren't neutral, they point. Thorstein sits, heart hammering. He's bought the hall unity. He's also reminded them of a dangerous rule. If you can joke about death, you can joke about anything. And soon, someone will make a joke with a name attached. One that turns the warmth of laughter into the heat of a feud. Look at a map of the North Sea, ragged coasts, scattered islands like thrown stones. For Vikings, that map isn't geography, it's a menu. Early spring. The ice loosens. The air smells of thawed seaweed and tar. On the beach, a longship crouches like a beast waiting to be fed. Fresh caulking squeezes between planks like dark paste. A dragon prow grins at the horizon. Men haul barrels, coils of rope that rasp against calluses. Someone sharpens an axe, the stone sings. Einar joins the crew, jaw tight. He wants glory, but what he really wants is to outrun the silence where his father used to be. To cover the tremor in his chest, he tosses a line. If I drown, don't drag me out. I'll haunt the oars and complain about your rhythm. The men laugh, grateful for something to do with their mouths besides prey. Hakon walks the sand pretending to study the tide. He isn't studying the tide. He's studying his future. His motive is to restore the story of his luck, one successful voyage, and the whispers fade. But his inner conflict is merciless. If I fail again, they won't just blame the sea. They'll blame me. Torstein boards 2, required to witness and sing. He touches a carved rune on the mast like a private handshake with fate. His motive is immortality in verse. His inner conflict is almost embarrassing in its simplicity. I want to be famous. I also want to live long enough to enjoy it. A sailor spits into the surf and says, "If the sea takes me, tell my wife I fought bravely." Another answers, "She'll ask if you fought bravely against temptation too." Laughter again, short, sharp. Even at the shoreline, humor keeps men from listening too closely to their own pulse. Then the sky darkens. Clouds roll in low and fast like a door slamming shut. The sail snaps like a whip. And the sea, cold, ancient, unimpressed, begins to test whether their jokes are courage or just noise. Freeze the storm in a single frame. The longship tilts on green-black water, foam ripping across the deck like torn linen. Wind howls. Wood creaks. Salt stings eyes and lips. The cold climbs into bone the way bad news climbs into a hull. Quietly, completely. This is where Viking humor stops being style and becomes reflex. Mini-story 1. A rower yells over the gale, "If I die, tell my wife I drowned heroically." Another barks back, "She'll ask where you hid the silver." The first man coughs seawater and shouts, "Then tell her I drowned honestly." Even Hakon's shoulders shake once, because everyone understands. Bravery is noble, but marriage is practical. Torstein clings to the mast thinking, the ocean has its own comedy. It lets you tell one joke, then delivers the punchline. His motive, fame, shrinks into something simpler. I want to breathe tomorrow. Einar grips a rope until his hands burn. He wants to be the kind of warrior who meets death smiling. But inside he's thinking a very human thing. Not today. His inner conflict stings. If I'm afraid, am I already failing the story people will tell about me? Mini-story 2, darker and oddly tender. A young man tries to whistle to steady himself. Just a thin, ridiculous sound in the wind. Someone snarls, "Stop that. You're calling the dead." The whistler yells back, "Good. If they show up, they can take a shift at the oars." Laughter flashes through panic like flint. Not because it's funny, because it breaks fear for 1 second, and 1 second is sometimes enough to keep hands moving. Hakon wrestles the steering, or knuckles pale. He wants to look fearless because a leader's fear is contagious. Inside, he's bargaining with every god he pretends not to fear. Not my ship. Not my men. Not my reputation. Then, abruptly, the storm eases like a bully losing interest. Clouds tear open. Pale sun turns the deck into a mirror. Ahead, land. Low cliffs. A strip of beach. Trees trembling in wind. Relief sweeps the ship until someone points. On the beach, half hidden among rocks, is the ash of a signal fire, still warm. Someone was here, watching, and whatever waits ashore already knows the taste of Viking laughter. Picture the landing. The keel grinds onto shingle with a sound like teeth. Men jump into icy shallows, water-soaking boots in seconds. The beach smells of kelp and wet stone. Above the tittle-line, driftwood is stacked too neatly. Human hands did that. Hakon sends scouts into the trees. The forest is dim, needles underfoot, the kind of quiet where you hear your heartbeat and suddenly don't trust it. Torstein follows, because skalds are supposed to witness. His motive is to bring back a story worth singing. His inner conflict is honest and humiliating. I want the story, but I don't want the wound that makes it famous. They find footprints with a tread pattern not their own. Einar crouches, almost pleased. He wants an enemy to pour his grief into. To hide the shake in his voice, he says, "If I die in these woods, at least my ghost will finally get some peace and quiet." The men chuckle too loudly. The joke is a shield, and you can hear it rattling. The ambush comes fast. Arrows from the tree line. A shout in a different language, shields snapping up. In the chaos, one Viking yells, "If I fall, point my corpse toward home. Let it crawl back." Laughter flashes through panic like flint striking steel. It steadies hands. It keeps legs moving. When it's over, one local warrior lies pinned alive, eyes bright with hatred. Hakon looks down and feels a chill that isn't from wind. Captives mean bargains. Bargains mean politics. His motive is a clean victory. His inner conflict is immediate. If I kill him, I create a vendetta. If I spare him, I look soft. The captive spits blood, smiles, and speaks with the calm of a man who knows words travel faster than ships. And Thorstein realizes the real battle may not be on the beach, but later, in warm halls, when this story gets told by people who weren't there. Back in the longhouse, the captive sits beneath smoky rafters, wrists bound with rope that creaks when he shifts. Firelight makes sweat shine on his cheek. In a still portrait, you'd notice the details: chipped tooth, scar at the jaw, eyes that refuse to look down. Pride, even cornered, is armor. Hakon offers ale, half kindness, half performance. The hall watches. This is a courtroom disguised as a feast. Thorstein can feel it. Every word spoken here will be repeated by merchants until it becomes truth. Mini-story 1. The captive, Kettle, begins like he understands Viking entertainment. He nods at the carved dragon post. Beautiful beast, he says. Bites its own tail, just like your politics. A few snorts. He points at a shield on the wall. That crack, battle damage? A warrior puffs up. Kettle smiles. No, that kind of crack comes from being dropped during a retreat. The hall erupts, because Vikings can forgive an insult if it's good. Thorstein hates how much he respects it. His motive is to protect his place. His inner conflict burns. I serve power with poetry, and this captive is steering the room with nothing but nerve. Mini-story 2. Sharper. Kettle tilts his head at Einar's knife hand. Careful, he says lightly. If you keep gripping steel like that, Hell will think you're trying to impress her. Laughter again, dangerous laughter, because it lands right where Einar's pride is bruised. Einar bristles. His motive is vengeance. His inner conflict is a young man's secret terror. If I don't look fearless, I'll be nobody, and my father will have died into nothing. Kettle senses the whole hall leaning, and then he drops the line that changes everything. My brother sits in a hall that calls you unlucky. That lands heavier than any axe. Because now this isn't a raid story. It's a legitimacy story, and Hakon's next move will decide whether this hall keeps laughing or starts sharpening. Shift the visual to an outdoor assembly, the thing, under a hard blue sky. Men stand in a rough circle on trampled grass. Cloaks snap in the wind. Horses steam. The law speaker recites tradition from memory, voice carrying like a drum. No marble, no crown, just eyes and pressure. Hakon brings Kettle here on purpose. He wants the whole district to see him as calm, generous, untouchable. Viking PR. His motive is control the narrative. His inner conflict is simple. If I squeeze too hard, I look afraid. If I let him go too easily, I look weak. Kettle is offered peace and compensation. He answers with a grin. If your Jarl kills me, at least I won't have to listen to his poets. The crowd laughs, then glances at Thorstein to see if he flinches. Thorstein forces a smile while his pride bites him. His motive is survival. His inner conflict is poisonous. Am I a truth-teller or a paid curtain? Einar steps forward, demanding blood for blood. His grief has found a handle. Sigrid watches him like she's watching a knife slide toward the edge of a table. Her motive is unity. Her inner conflict is brutal. If I stop him, he resents me. If I let him go, he becomes a problem no mother can hold. Hakon raises a hand. He announces Kettle will live. If a message is carried, stop calling him unlucky, or the next joke will be written in graves. The crowd murmurs, impressed and uneasy at once. As the assembly breaks, a stranger arrives at the edge, hood up, a small wooden cross at his throat. He brings trade, alliances, and a new faith that doesn't always appreciate Viking-style comedy. And the hall can feel the temperature shifting. Back inside, candlelight steadies the shadows. The stranger, Alfric, an English cleric, steps into the longhouse carrying books instead of blades. The cross on his chest looks fragile against all this iron. He speaks carefully, like a man talking to wolves and hoping not to sound like prey. He's seen enough death to avoid joking about it. But he needs respect here, and respect is measured in courage, not Latin. So he tries a gentle joke, something about how even saints freeze in drafty buildings. It lands like a wet sock, polite smiles, no real laughter. Einar snorts. Christians fear laughter because they fear the dead. Sigrid snaps, mind your tongue. Her motive is to keep the hall from tearing itself apart. Her inner conflict is private. I don't care which god wins the argument if my children survive. Hakon watches like a gambler. Christianity offers safer markets, alliances, silver. It also offers priests, written laws, and a new kind of authority that can undermine a Jarl who rules by reputation and luck. His motive is advantage. His inner conflict is obvious. How do you adopt a new god without letting him take your throne? Torstein feels caught between worlds. The old gods gave him sharp stories, and sharp stories gave him status. The new faith threatens to treat sharp tongues like sin. His motive is relevance, stay valuable. His inner conflict is fear. What happens to a skald when the culture decides jokes are dangerous? Alfric asks to bless the hall. Hakon hesitates, then nods. Refusing would look afraid. That night, as candle smoke coils upward, Hakon's youngest son begins to cough. Wet, frightening, the kind of sound that kills laughter mid-breath. And suddenly everyone in the hall realizes they're about to test their jokes against the one opponent that never loses. Picture the boy on a fur pallet by the hearth, face too pale against foxskins, lips cracked, eyes half open as if he's already looking past the rafters. Bowls of crushed herbs sit nearby. The air tastes of smoke, sweat, and bitterness. Outside, the wind keeps trying the walls, as if winter wants in. Sigrid kneels, smoothing his hair with trembling fingers. Her motive is raw. Keep him here. Her inner conflict is sharper. Old words or new prayers. What do you choose when both might fail? Alfric murmurs blessings soft as ash. The healer mutters older charms like stones clicked together. Mini-story 1, warm and defiant. Torstein is asked to lift the spirit. He hates it. Poetry as medicine feels like a lie. But he leans close and whispers, not for the room, but for the boy. If hell shows up, don't be polite. The boy's eyes flutter. Torstein smiles carefully. She expects prayers. She expects fear. Do something unexpected. He taps his own teeth. Bite her. A couple of women release a shaky laugh, the kind that's half sob. Even Sigrid's mouth twitches. It isn't disrespect. It's rebellion against helplessness. Mini-story 2, darker and oddly domestic. An old aunt mutters, if the boy dies, I'm marching into hell myself. Someone whispers, with what weapon? She sniffs. A cooking spoon. Hell will surrender just to avoid my opinions about her housekeeping. The room gives a thin, grateful laugh, because it's easier to imagine hell as a bad hostess than as the void. Hakon stands at the foot of the pallet, shoulders squared, trying to look like stone. Inside, he's terrified, not only as a father, but as a Jarl who can feel bad luck turning into public evidence. His motive is to appear unbreakable. His inner conflict is merciless. I can't command sickness. I can only command the story afterward. Just before dawn, the coughing stops. For a heartbeat, someone whispers, he's sleeping. Then Sigrid makes a sound that isn't a word, and the room knows the truth. Outside, a raven lands on the roof like it has been waiting. And inside, every death joke the hall ever told suddenly feels like it has been overheard. The funeral is a tableau made for still images. A small boat dragged onto land, piled with furs, a child's bracelet, a tiny carved horse. Torches burn even in daylight, their flames pale but stubborn. Wind tugs at hoods. The smell of tar and smoke bites the throat. Ash begins to drift like gray snow. Here, the dark jokes dry up. No one wants to be the first to laugh, because laughter now would sound like permission. Torstein is ordered to speak. He feels the weight of eyes the way you feel cold water rising up your spine. His motive is survival. Say the right thing, keep breathing. His inner conflict is moral. If I soften death with humor, am I helping or lying? He chooses the Norse trick. Meet horror with a crooked smile. He's gone early to scout the halls beyond, Torstein says, to make sure the benches are clean and the mead is poured. A few throats release a startled laugh, more emotion than amusement. Then Einar mutters, loud enough to carry. Good. Maybe he'll tell my father where the Jarl misplaced him. Silence slams down. That isn't a joke. That's an accusation wearing a joke's coat. Hakon turns slowly, face empty. Torstein's blood goes cold. Words have crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. Alfric looks torn. He wants to speak of heaven, but he can feel the hall's anger like heat. Sigrid stares at the fire as if she's trying to burn her grief into something controllable. The boat catches, flames licking upward like hungry tongues. Hakon doesn't strike Einar, not yet. Instead, he looks at Torstein, and Torstein understands the message. Someone must pay for this fracture. And when the pyre collapses inward, you can feel the hull collapse a little too. Quietly, invisibly, but permanently. That evening the longhouse feels bruised. The fire is low. Crumbs lie where no one bothered to sweep. The air has the sour edge of smoke after a pyre, like grief has its own smell. Hakon sits in the high seat staring at the spot where his son used to chase the dog around the carved posts. A jarl is supposed to be stone. Tonight, he's stone with cracks. Thorstein is summoned. Every floorboard creak sounds like a verdict. Hakon speaks softly. Your words loosen tongues. Meaning, your jokes opened a wound I needed stitched shut. His motive is control. His inner conflict is ugly. He can't control death, so he tries to control the story about death. Thorstein wants to argue. The truth was already there, but truth is expensive in a hall full of knives. He thinks of Ketil's grin traveling west on rumor. He thinks of Einar's grief hardening into a weapon. Thorstein realizes something he hates. A skald doesn't just describe reality, he steers it. And sometimes he steers it into rocks. Hakon offers exile wrapped in politeness. Travel for a season. Leave before your tongue becomes useful to my enemies. Thorstein nods because nodding keeps him breathing. Inside, humiliation burns. A skald without a hall is a singer without an audience. But a skald who only flatters becomes a pet. Sigrid slips him a pouch of silver, eyes hollow. Write something kinder, she whispers. It's less command than prayer. Thorstein packs, fingers stiff with cold and anger. His motive is to live. His inner conflict is identity. If I stop being the hall's voice, who am I? Before dawn, he boards a smaller ship heading west. The sea is calm, which feels like a trick. And as the coastline fades, he wonders what is more dangerous now, storms or stories. Now jump centuries in a single cut. Picture an Icelandic farmhouse in winter. Snow pressed against walls, one oil lamp making a puddle of warm light on a wooden table. Frost feathers the window. A man bends over parchment, quill scratching. Ink smells faintly of iron and smoke. This is where the Viking world survives. In manuscripts, in sagas, in stories collected like embers before they go out. The sagas preserve moments where doomed men crack lines at the edge of the grave. Humor as a last claim to dignity. A man facing death refuses to give enemies the satisfaction of seeing him beg. Instead he jokes, and the joke becomes a shield nobody can take away. In some tales, the last laugh is the last piece of freedom a person owns. But notice the cross at the scribe's neck. Many scribes were Christian. Their motive is preservation, and sometimes persuasion. Their inner conflict lives in the ink. Admire ancestral courage without endorsing pagan gods. Record a joke about hell while believing hell is a lie. They write anyway, because the old stories won't sit quietly and be erased. You can almost see the compromise happening on the page. Pagan grit framed with Christian caution. The jokes survive, but their meaning shifts. They become proof of character. They become the wink inside tragedy. They become a way of saying, this person kept their mind, even at the end. And somewhere between those lines, you can hear Thorstein again, smug and scared at once, still trying to outrun oblivion with a sentence. Because the final twist is this: Vikings didn't invent gallows humor. They refined it into a survival tool. And they passed it to us like an inheritance nobody admits they want until they need it. For the last frame, imagine a museum display. A rune stone under glass, grooves catching light, an iron axe resting like it's asleep. A painting of a longship on open water, small and stubborn against an endless horizon. The museum smells clean and polished, trying to tame a violent past with labels and lighting. But the objects don't feel tamed. They feel like they're waiting. Dark jokes weren't a Viking quirk. They were a technique. When you joke about death, you're not denying it. You're shrinking it to a size you can carry, like a stone in your pocket. Heavy, but yours. Mini story 1. Warm and quietly cruel. I like to picture Thorstein years later, older, hair threaded with gray, in a smaller hall where the roof leaks and politics are simpler, but fear is the same. A young farmer asks, what was it like sailing with Hakon? Thorstein smiles and says, cold, loud, and the sea laughs first. The room chuckles. Thorstein's motive is still there, be remembered, but his inner conflict has softened into honesty. I want the story true, even if truth makes heroes messy. Mini story 2, The Final Wink. Someone asks him, "Are you afraid of dying?" Thorstein lifts his cup and says, "Of course. I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of dying and waking up in hell with bad seating." They laugh, and then he adds, softer, "And I'm afraid someone else will wear my boots." The laughter turns warmer, because it isn't really about boots. It's about being replaced, forgotten, packed away like an old tool. If you've ever laughed at the worst possible moment, hospital corridors, tense funerals, frightening news, you've touched the same ancient impulse. Steal one breath of control back from the dark. It isn't disrespect. It's survival with style. So next time you hear a joke that feels too dark, don't only judge it. Listen for the fear underneath and the courage riding on top. Because somewhere, in some smoky hall of your own life, you may need that laugh. And when you do, you'll want to know exactly what it's really for.